My parents kicked me out of the house on my 18th birthday. 8 years later, they came back asking for my favorite sister to live with me. The day I turned 18, I didn't get a cake, not a hug, not even a whispered happy birthday. What I received was an old backpack thrown on the living room floor, and my mother's icy stare looking at me as if I were an overdue bill that had finally come due. "You're an adult now, Julia," she said, arms crossed over her chest. "Time to get on with your life." My father was behind her, leaning against the kitchen doorway, fiddling with his phone as if none of this had anything to do with him. I remember trying to laugh, thinking it was some kind of bad joke, like those pranks you see on the internet. But when I looked into my mother's eyes, I saw no humor. I saw determination. "Are you serious?" I asked, and my voice came out thin, almost childlike. "Completely," she replied without blinking. "I packed your things. You have until the end of the afternoon to leave." I had just graduated from high school 3 days before. I wasn't a rebellious daughter. I didn't use drugs. I didn't get pregnant. I didn't drop out of school. I worked part-time at a bakery near home, had decent grades, dreamed of taking a nursing technical course if I could save up money. But none of that mattered, because I was never the favorite. My younger sister, Bianca, was always the family star, 2 years younger than me, but treated as if she were made of crystal. She got new clothes while I inherited hers when she got tired of them. She did ballet, English, swimming. Me? I helped pay her bills by working at the bakery. When Bianca got good grades, my mother posted on Facebook with heart emojis. When I did, she said, "Your obligation, Julia." Nothing less. I learned early not to complain. I learned that love in my house was conditional, and I never met the conditions. I grabbed the backpack. Inside were 3 changes of clothes, a pair of worn-out sneakers, and a toiletry bag with the basics. Not even my high school diploma was in there. I looked at my mother, waiting for some sign of doubt, of regret. Nothing. "Really?" I asked one more time, feeling the tears start to burn. "Really," she replied. "You're an adult. Figure it out." I walked out the front door with 80 Brazilian reals in my pocket, money I had saved from the week's tips. I had nowhere to go. No close relatives. No friends with their own place. I spent the first night at a bus stop, sitting with the backpack on my lap, shaking from cold and anger. In the following days, I slept at 2 different friends' houses until their parents became uncomfortable. I slept once in the bakery locker room, hiding after my shift. Finally, a coworker, Fernanda, offered me her living room couch for a few weeks. She lived in a tiny apartment with her sick mother, but she was more family to me in those days than my parents had been in 18 years. It took me 4 years to get back on my feet. 4 years working 2, sometimes 3 jobs. Supermarket cashier during the day, cleaner at night. On weekends, I did odd jobs selling cosmetics. I studied when I could, took free online courses, learned Excel, learned about administration, threw myself into any opportunity that appeared. At 22, I got a job as an administrative assistant at a dental clinic. It didn't pay much, but it was stable. At 24, I got promoted. At 26, I was managing the finances of 3 clinics. I bought a small apartment, paid off with a lot of sweat, in a simple but safe neighborhood. I bought my own furniture, built my own life. It wasn't luxury, but it was mine. And for the first time since I left that house, I could sleep without fearing tomorrow. I didn't think about my family. I didn't call, didn't visit, didn't text. They had made their choice. And I mean. But life has a strange way of pulling you back to places you swore you'd never step foot in again. One Sunday morning, I was washing dishes, listening to music, when I heard the doorbell ring. I looked through the peephole and my stomach dropped. My mother. Behind her, my father, with the same tired posture as always. I stood still, not knowing what to do. Part of me wanted to pretend I wasn't home. But the other part, the one that still held a remnant of curiosity, or perhaps stupid hope, made me open the door. "Julia," my mother said, as if we had seen each other last week. "You look so different." I didn't respond. I just stood there, holding the doorknob. "Can we come in?" my father asked. I stepped aside, but said nothing. They entered as if they were inspecting a property for sale. My mother looked around, noticed the simple furniture, the walls without expensive paintings, and gave that smile I knew well. The smile that said, "It's okay, but it could be better." They sat on the couch without being invited. "We need to talk," my mother began, folding her hands in her lap. "About Bianca." "Of course. Always about Bianca." "What happened to her?" I asked, crossing my arms. "She's going through a difficult time," my mother explained with that soft voice she used when she wanted to seem vulnerable. "She ended her engagement. Lost her job. She's fragile." And I said, emotionless. My father cleared his throat. "And we think it would be good for her to stay here with you. Just until she recovers." I blinked. Then blinked again. I thought I had heard wrong. "You're asking for Bianca to live here. With me." "That's right," my mother confirmed, as if it were the most logical thing in the world. "You have space. You're doing well. And she's your sister." I was silent for a long moment, just processing the audacity. "You threw me out on the street when I turned 18, I said slowly. "Without warning. Without support. Without anything." "Julia, it wasn't like that," my mother began. "It was exactly like that," I cut her off. "And now you show up here after 8 years, asking me to take in Bianca?" "She needs you," my father said, as if that solved everything. "Need," I repeated, feeling the anger rise. "And when I needed. When I was sleeping at bus stops. When I went hungry. When I cried alone in a public bathroom because I had nowhere to go." My mother sighed, impatient. "You were always stronger. Bianca isn't like you. She's sensitive." And there it was. The same excuse as always. I was strong, so I didn't deserve care. Bianca was sensitive, so she deserved everything. "Get out of my house," I said. "Julia." "Now." They stood up, my father grumbling something about ingratitude, my mother with that expression of a misunderstood victim. Before leaving, she turned. "You're going to regret this." I closed the door in their faces and leaned against it, trembling. Not from fear. From fury. But I still didn't know that was just the beginning. That they weren't going to give up so easily. And that I was about to discover how far a family is capable of going when they decide you're disposable. In the days following that visit, I tried to return to my routine. Work, gym, home. As if nothing had happened. As if seeing my parents after 8 years was just a passing inconvenience, like a clogged drain that you call someone to fix and move on. But my head didn't cooperate. I woke up in the middle of the night replaying the conversation. My mother's words echoed. "She's sensitive." As if I were made of concrete. As if having no choice but to be strong meant I never needed anyone. I tried to convince myself they would disappear again. That they had tried their luck, it didn't work, and that was it. But I underestimated their persistence. Or rather, their desperation. A week later, I received a WhatsApp message. Unknown number, but I knew who it was before I even opened it. "Hi, Ju. It's Bianca." I stared at the screen for a while. The last time we had really talked, she was 16 and was complaining that I had borrowed a blouse of hers without asking. A blouse that, ironically, had been mine before becoming hers, by maternal decree. I didn't respond, but the messages kept coming. "I know it's been a while, but I really need to talk to you. It's not about living there. I promise. I just want to talk. Please, Ju. I know things were complicated, but we're sisters." That last sentence irritated me more than it should have. We're sisters. As if that were an unlimited credit card of forgiveness and obligation. I blocked the number. The next day, I received a call at work. The receptionist transferred it before I could say no. "Hello." I answered, already knowing who it was. "Julia." Bianca's voice was soft, almost tearful. "Please don't hang up." I stayed silent. "I know you don't owe me anything," she continued quickly. "I know Mom and Dad did horrible things to you. I know. And I'm sorry. That caught me off guard. I didn't expect an apology." "Sorry," I repeated, testing the words. "I am. Really. I was too young to understand what was happening. And when I understood, it was too late to do anything." "You never tried to talk to me," I said. "In 8 years, Bianca. You had my number. You knew where I worked." "I know," she admitted, her voice choking. "I was a coward. But now I'm going through something similar to what you went through. And I finally understand. Understand what? What it's like to be disposable to them. That made me pause. I took a deep breath, trying not to let empathy disarm me. What happened? I asked, somewhat against my will. She sighed. I ended the engagement because I found out Rodrigo was cheating on me. When I told Mom, she said I should have overlooked it. That marriage is about commitment, not happiness. I lost my job because the company went bankrupt. And when I asked for financial help, Dad said I needed to learn to fend for myself. That they weren't going to support me forever. I almost laughed. Almost. Because it was exactly the kind of hypocrisy I would expect from them. And so you wanted to come live with me, I completed. No, she said quickly. I mean, it was their idea. I didn't even know they were going to look for you. When I found out, I was embarrassed. Because I know I don't have that right. I sat there fiddling with a pen on the desk, thinking. Part of me wanted to believe her. The other part, the one that had been betrayed so many times, was skeptical. What do you want, Bianca? Just to talk. In person. Without them. Just you and me. For what? Because you're the only person who can understand what I'm feeling now. And because I want to try to fix this. Between us. I hung up without responding. But the call stayed in my head all day. That broken voice. Those words that seemed too sincere to be rehearsed. Was Bianca really changed? Or was it just another manipulation orchestrated by our parents? 2 days later, I made a decision. I sent her a message. Coffee. Saturday, 10 a.m. Rua das Flores Bakery. Alone. If you show up with them, I'm leaving. The response came in seconds. I'll be there. Alone. Thank you, Jew. Saturday came too quickly. I woke up with a knot in my stomach. Got dressed 3 times, changing clothes because nothing seemed right. I didn't want to look sloppy, but I also didn't want to look like I was trying to impress. I arrived at the bakery 5 minutes late on purpose. Bianca was already there, sitting at a corner table, fiddling with her phone. When she saw me, she raised her hand in a shy wave. She looked different. Thinner, shorter hair, deep dark circles. Still beautiful, the way she always was, but with a fragility that wasn't there before. I sat across from her without greeting her. Hi, she said quietly. Hi. We were silent for a moment. She ordered a coffee for me without asking, remembered how I took it. Black, no sugar. That surprised me. Thanks for coming, she began. I didn't come to make peace, I warned. I came because I need to know what's really going on. She nodded, stirring her cup. Fair. So, what do you want? Bianca took a deep breath. I want you to know that I'm not on their side. Not anymore. And that. I understand now. Everything they did to you. Because they're doing the same to me. Tell me, I asked, crossing my arms. She started slowly, but soon the story picked up pace. She told me about the engagement, about how Rodrigo was the perfect son-in-law for our parents, lawyer, traditional family, imported car. When she discovered the cheating and broke it off, our mother was furious. She said Bianca was throwing away the chance to have a real marriage. She literally said I should pretend I didn't know, Bianca said, her eyes watering. That every woman goes through this. That I was being dramatic. I said nothing, just listened. And when I lost my job, Dad said it was my fault. That I was always complacent, spoiled. That I never learned to fend for myself because they gave me everything on a silver platter. As if it were my fault they raised me that way. She wiped the tears with the back of her hand. I asked to stay there just until I found a new job. You know what they said. I could imagine, but I let her tell. That I had until the end of the month. That if I wanted to continue being supported, I should have married Rodrigo. I took a deep breath. It was revolting, but in a way predictable. Our parents only loved you while you served some purpose. And Bianca had just lost her usefulness. And where are you living? I asked. With a friend. But the apartment is small, and her boyfriend doesn't like me there. I've been on the couch for 3 weeks. And the job. I'm looking. But without a reference from the last company, it's difficult. I sat looking at her, trying to decide if all this was true or theater. But something in her manner, in the tiredness of her shoulders, in the way she avoided my gaze when talking about our parents, told me it was real. Why didn't you ever reach out to me before? I asked. In 8 years, Bianca. You knew what they did to me. You knew where I was. She bit her lip. Because I was afraid you'd hate me. And because I was ashamed. Ashamed of having stayed quiet. Of having accepted everything they gave me while you had nothing. And are you ashamed now? I am, she said, looking at me for the first time. Very much. And I don't expect you to forgive me. But I needed you to know that I'm not them. That I don't agree with what they did. And that if you never want to talk to me again, I'll understand. I was silent, processing. It was strange to see Bianca like this. Vulnerable. Broken. All her life, she was the untouchable one. And now she was sitting in front of me, as lost as I had been at 18. I'm not going to let you live with me, I said. She nodded. I know. But I can help you look for a job. I have some contacts. Her eyes widened. Really? Really? But with one condition. What? You don't bring our parents into this. If they ask, you don't tell them anything about me. About where I live, how I'm doing, nothing. Deal, she said quickly. And another thing, I added. If this is some kind of setup, if you're lying to me, I'll know. And then, Bianca, you'll never hear from me again. Understood. Understood. We finished our coffee in silence. When we said goodbye, she gave me a quick hug, which I didn't return. But I also didn't refuse. I went home with my head full. Was I doing the right thing? Or was I being an idiot, falling into the same trap that almost destroyed me? Only time would tell. But meanwhile, I would keep my guard up. Because if there was one thing I learned in those 8 years, it was that trust is earned. And forgiveness? Forgiveness needs to be deserved. And Bianca still had a long way to go. In the following weeks, I kept in touch with Bianca. Not daily, not intimate, but enough to help her with what I had promised. I sent her resume to 2 acquaintances who worked in human resources, gave tips on how to present herself in interviews, even reviewed the cover letter she wrote. It was strange. Every time I hit send on a message to her, I felt a mix of guilt and distrust. Guilt for not being able to be warmer, more sisterly. Distrust because I still expected that at any moment, she would reveal that all of this was an elaborate plan by our parents. But none of that happened. At least not immediately. Bianca got an interview at a digital marketing company. She called me excited, thanking me about 5 times. She said she was going to prepare, that she really wanted that position, that she felt things were finally getting better. 2 days later, she was hired. Starting salary, nothing spectacular, but enough for her to rent a room in a shared house and get off her friend's couch. Thank you, Ju, she told me on the phone, her voice choked. Seriously. You have no idea how much this means. I'm happy for you, I replied, and it was true. At least in part. I thought that would be the end. That she would go on with her life, I with mine, and we would maintain a cordial and distant relationship, like cousins who see each other at weddings and funerals. But then my mother came back into the picture. I was at the market Saturday morning, buying things for the week, when I felt someone watching me. I turned, and there she was, standing in the pasta aisle, with a half-full cart and that expression that mixed fake surprise and determination. Julia, she said, coming toward me. My instinct was to turn and leave. But we were in the middle of the market, surrounded by people. I wasn't going to make a scene. That wasn't my style. Mom, I replied, emotionless. She stopped in front of me, adjusted her purse on her shoulder, as if she were preparing for a presentation. What a coincidence running into you here. It wasn't a coincidence. My mother never shopped at this market. She always went to a more expensive one on the other side of town, where they sell French bread at 2 Brazilian reals per unit and have an olive oil sommelier. What do you want? I asked directly. She sighed, making that martyred, misunderstood face. I wanted to talk. No fighting. Just talk. About Bianca. Of course. I heard you helped her get a job, my mother continued, as if she were praising me. That was very generous of you. I didn't respond. And I came to thank you. Really. You did a good thing. I didn't do it for you. I cut her off. I know. But still, it shows you have a good heart, Julia. That despite everything, you still care about family. I felt my blood boil. She was doing it again. trying to manipulate me, pull me back into that sick dynamic where I was the strong one, the one who endured everything, the one who always gave in. You don't care about family when you throw your daughter out on the street on her birthday, I said, low but firm. She blinked, as if she had been slapped. Julia, that was a long time ago. You can't stay stuck in the past forever. I'm not stuck. I'm remembering. It's different. We did what we thought was best at the time. You were an adult. You needed to learn to fend for yourself. And Bianca? I asked. Did she need to as well? My mother looked away. Bianca is different. Why? Because she's more fragile? More delicate? Or because you always liked her better? It's not about liking more, she replied, her voice rising a bit. It's about necessity. Bianca needs more support. I needed it too, I said, feeling my throat tighten. But you didn't care. A heavy silence fell between us. People passed by, grabbed products, went on with their lives. And there we were, two strangers connected only by a last name and a bunch of grievances. What do you want me to do, Julia? My mother asked, and for the first time she sounded tired. Go back in time? Change everything? No. I want you to leave me alone. She took a deep breath. I came here because I need to ask you something. No. You don't even know what it is. It doesn't matter. The answer is no. She ignored me. Your grandfather, your father's father, is sick. Cancer. Advanced. He has some assets, a house, some savings. And he left everything divided between you and Bianca. I stopped. I looked at her, trying to understand where this was going. I didn't know, I admitted. My grandfather and I were never close. He was kind of reclusive, lived in the countryside, rarely showed up. Well, but he did. And now, with Bianca starting over and you already being established, your father, and I think it would be fair for you to give up your part. Leave everything to her. She needs it more. And there it was. The real reason. I laughed. I couldn't help it. A short, bitter laugh. You're incredible, I said, shaking my head. Surreal. Julia, you threw me away like garbage. Never gave me anything. And now you want me to give up an inheritance that's rightfully mine, to give everything to Bianca? It's not just that, my mother tried to argue. It's about doing the right thing. About helping those who need it. Doing the right thing? Are you serious? She crossed her arms. You have a good job. An apartment. You don't need this money. And if I needed it, would you care? Or would you invent another excuse to give everything to her? My mother didn't respond. You can go, I said, pushing my cart forward. I'm not giving up anything. Julia, wait. But I was already walking. I paid for my groceries, put everything in the car, and only when I closed the door did I realize I was shaking. Not from fear. From pure rage. How did they have the nerve? How did they have the audacity to show up after everything, asking me to give up something that was legitimately mine? I got home, put the groceries away on autopilot, and sat on the couch. I stayed there, looking at the ceiling, trying to process. I grabbed my phone and called Bianca. She answered on the second ring. Hi, Ju. Everything okay? Did you know? I asked directly. Know what? About Grandpa's inheritance. That it's divided between us. And that Mom wants me to give up my part. Silence on the other end. Bianca, I knew there was an inheritance, she admitted, her voice low. But I didn't know Mom was going to ask you that. I swear. Did you agree with this? No. Of course not. I didn't even know you were part of the inheritance until last week. They don't tell me anything. I wanted to believe her. But it was difficult. Look, Bianca continued, I'm not going to accept that money if it comes from you giving up. That's not right. If it's yours, it's yours. I don't want anything that's at your expense. Really, really. I swear, Ju, I'm not them. I hung up, still confused. Bianca seemed sincere. But my mother also seemed sincere when she wanted to. I went to the computer and opened Google. I typed my grandfather's name, the name of the city where he lived. I wanted to know more about this inheritance before anything else happened. And that's when I found something that changed everything. A local newspaper article from 2 months ago. My grandfather had passed away. And according to the article, He had left a will registered at the notary, dividing all assets equally between his two granddaughters. But what chilled me was the last line: close relatives are contesting the will, claiming the division does not reflect the deceased's true wishes. Close relatives. My parents. They were trying to nullify the will. And they wanted me to sign something giving up my rights, probably without even knowing what I was signing. That's when I realized. This wasn't just about money. It was about control. About keeping me invisible. About ensuring that even after death, my grandfather didn't give me something they never gave. Recognition. I picked up the phone and called the first lawyer I found specializing in successions. I scheduled an appointment for Monday. Because if they thought I was going to give up without a fight, they were very wrong. This time, I wasn't that 18-year-old girl with a backpack and 80 Brazilian reals in my pocket anymore. This time, I had resources. I had knowledge. And most importantly, I had enough anger not to back down an inch. The war had begun. And they still didn't know who they were messing with. The lawyer I found was named Dr. Renata Campos. Small office, but well organized, in a commercial room downtown. She was about 50 years old, gray hair tied in a bun, reading glasses on the tip of her nose, and a posture that conveyed seriousness without being intimidating. I arrived on Monday at 2 p.m. as agreed. I brought everything I had managed to print about my grandfather, the newspaper article, some old documents I had kept without even knowing why, and a notebook where I noted every detail of the conversation with my mother. Dr. Renata received me with a firm handshake and offered me coffee. I declined. I was too nervous to have anything. So, Julia, she began, sitting behind the desk. Tell me what's going on. I took a deep breath and poured everything out. The expulsion from home at 18, the 8 years of silence, the sudden reappearance of the family, the pressure to help Bianca, and finally, my grandfather's inheritance and my parents' attempt to make me give it up. She listened in silence, making notes on a pad. When I finished, she took off her glasses and looked at me directly. Are you sure you want to get into this fight? She asked. Because inheritance disputes with family can get very ugly, very quickly. I'm sure, even if it means cutting ties for good. I don't have a relationship with them, I replied. Not really. She nodded, putting her glasses back on. All right. So let's get to what matters. First thing, you need an official copy of the will. I'll request that from the notary where it was registered. Second thing, don't sign anything your parents give you. Absolutely nothing. Not even if it comes disguised as a simple document, or just a formality. Understood. Understood. Third thing, she continued, leafing through the pages I brought. If they're contesting the will, they need to have a legal basis. I'll investigate their arguments. But from the news here, it seems they're claiming your grandfather wasn't in full use of his mental faculties when he made the will, or that he was influenced by someone. But that's a lie, I said, indignant. My grandfather was lucid. He had early Alzheimer's, but when he made the will, 2 years ago, he was still fine. Great. So we're going to need proof of that. Medical reports, witnesses, anything that proves he knew exactly what he was doing. I left that office with a to-do list and a strange feeling in my chest. It wasn't relief, not yet. It was more like preparation. As if I were arming myself for a battle I knew was coming. In the following days, I dove into the investigation. I called the notary, requested documents, searched through public records online. I discovered that my grandfather had left a house in the countryside, valued at about 320,000 Brazilian reals, and a savings account with another 150,000 Brazilian reals. Divided by 2, that was more than 230,000 Brazilian reals for each granddaughter. It wasn't a fortune, but it was significant. And more important, it was mine. By right. I also discovered that my parents had filed the contestation 3 weeks ago, claiming exactly what Dr. Renata had predicted, that my grandfather was senile and that the will had been influenced by third parties. But who would these third parties be? I didn't even see my grandfather. The last time I met him, I was about 15 years old. I called Bianca. I needed to know what she knew. Hello, she answered with traffic noise in the background. Bianca, it's me. Are you busy? I'm coming back from work. What's up? I need to ask you something. Did you visit Grandpa? She took a while to respond. I did. From time to time. Why? Our parents are saying he was senile when he made the will. Do you think he was? No, she replied immediately. He was fine. I went there about 4 months before he died. We talked, he asked about life, about you too. My heart tightened. He asked about me? He did. He wanted to know if you were okay, if you were working. I said I didn't know, that we didn't talk much. He was sad. I swallowed hard, trying to push away the emotion. And what else did he say? That you were always strong. That he admired that. And that he wanted to have done more for you. I had to bite my lip to keep from crying. An old man who barely knew me had more consideration for me than my own parents. Bianca, I said, controlling my voice. Would you be willing to testify? In case this goes to court. To say he was lucid. She was silent for so long that I thought the call had dropped. Bianca, if I do that, she said quietly, they'll hate me. I know. They'll cut me off. Like, for real. They'll disinherit me from everything. I know, I repeated. But it's the truth. And you said you weren't them. I heard her take a deep breath on the other end. You're right. I'll testify. If needed. Are you sure? I am. I'm tired, Jew. Tired of living in fear of displeasing them. Tired of being a puppet. If they cut me off, at least I'll be on the right side. I hung up with a mix of surprise and something that might have been pride. For the first time, Bianca was choosing to do the right thing, even if it cost her dearly. But the peace didn't last long. 2 days later, coming back from work, I found my father sitting in the lobby of my building. He was in a suit, as if he had come straight from some appointment, and had that expression I knew well. The one of someone who was about to give a lecture. Julia, he said, standing when he saw me. My stomach turned, but I didn't let it show. What are you doing here? We need to talk. We have nothing to talk about. I went around him, heading straight for the elevator, but he followed me. It's about your grandfather's inheritance, he insisted. You can't do this. Do what? Defend what's mine. You're destroying this family. I pressed the elevator button hard. No. You destroyed it when you threw me away. He took a step forward, blocking my view. We did what was best for you. You needed to mature. Mature? I repeated, incredulous. I was 18 years old. Just graduated. You put me on the street without a penny. And look how well you turned out, he argued, opening his arms as if he were proving a point. You have a job, an apartment. We did you a favor. I laughed. I couldn't help it. It was so absurd I could only laugh. A favor? Right. Sleeping at bus stops was a favor. Going hungry was a favor. Working like a convict to afford a roach-infested room was a favor. You're being dramatic. And you're being ridiculous. The elevator arrived. I got in and tried to close the door, but he held it. Julia, listen. If you continue with this, you'll regret it. Is that a threat? It's a warning, he said firm. This inheritance isn't for you. Your grandfather barely knew you. You don't deserve it. Something broke inside me. All the words I had swallowed my whole life, all the times I lowered my head and accepted, rose all at once. Maybe I didn't deserve to be loved by you, I said, looking directly into his eyes. But this inheritance? This is mine by law. And I'm going to fight for it. Tooth and nail if necessary. Now take your hand off the door before I call security. He hesitated, but finally backed off. The doors closed, and I went up alone, shaking from head to toe. When I entered the apartment, I leaned against the door and let the tears fall. Not from sadness, from anger, from exhaustion, from everything, but also from determination. Because now it wasn't just about money. It was about proving to them, and to myself, that I wasn't disposable, that I had value, that I existed, and that this time I wasn't going to back down. I grabbed my phone and texted Dr. Renata. My father just threatened me. We need to speed this up. The response came quickly. Will do. Tomorrow I'll file the documents. Prepare yourself, Julia. The fight is going to be ugly. I was already prepared. Actually, I had spent the last 8 years preparing, without even knowing it. And now, finally, it was time to show what I was capable of. In the following days, things escalated quickly. Dr. Renata filed a formal petition in the inventory process, contesting my parents' claim and demanding validation of the original will. Along with that, she attached a request for concrete evidence of my grandfather's alleged mental incapacity to be presented. They won't be able to, she told me on the phone, confident. Because it doesn't exist. Your grandfather underwent medical exams 6 months before he died. I got the reports. He was perfectly lucid. How did you get that? I asked, impressed. I have my contacts. And the clinic where he was treated was very helpful when I explained the situation. Meanwhile, the pressure from my family increased. My mother started sending me daily messages. At first, trying to appeal to emotion. Julia, please think of the family. Your father is very stressed about all this. Bianca is suffering because of you. She can't even sleep properly. You've always been so selfish. Since you were little. I didn't respond to any. I blocked her number after the 10th message. Then came calls from distant relatives. Uncles I hadn't seen in years. Cousins who barely knew my name. All with the same spiel. That I was being difficult, that family was sacred, that I should think of the greater good. You know Bianca needs it more than you, said my Aunt Marcia, my mother's sister, in a condescending tone. She's been through so much. The engagement, the job. And what did I go through, Aunt? I retorted. Flowers and chocolates? You were always stronger, Julia. You always managed well on your own. Because I had no choice. She sighed, irritated. You're not going to change your mind, are you? No. Then you'll have to deal with the consequences. And she hung up. The consequences didn't take long to appear. On a Thursday night, coming back from the market, I noticed the lock on my apartment was scratched. It looked like someone had tried to force it. My heart raced. I dropped the bags on the floor and examined more closely. The marks were recent. The paint around it was chipped. I went in slowly, turning on all the lights, checking each room. Nothing seemed out of place. Nothing was missing. But the feeling of invasion was there, stuck to my skin. I installed a security camera on the door the next day. One of those small, discreet ones that records directly to the cloud. And good thing I did. Because 3 days later, the camera caught my father. It was 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. I was at work when I received the notification on my phone. Movement detected at the door. I opened the app and saw, in real time, my father crouched in front of my door, trying to stick something in the lock. He wasn't alone. Nathan, my younger cousin, Aunt Marcia's son, was with him, holding what looked like a toolbox. I felt my blood boil. I recorded everything, took screenshots, and immediately called Dr. Renata. They're trying to break into my apartment. Right now. Live. Are you there? No. I'm at work. Perfect. Don't go home yet. Call the police. File a police report. And send me that video. I did exactly that. I called the police, explained the situation, gave them the address. They said they would send a patrol car. 15 minutes later, I received another notification. My father and my cousin had left. The lock was still intact, but the attempt was documented. When I finally got home late at night, I found a note stuck under the door. You're making a mistake. This isn't going to end well for you. It wasn't signed, but I knew the handwriting. It was my mother's. I photographed the note, kept it as evidence, and felt something strange settle in my chest. It wasn't fear. It was clarity. They weren't going to stop. Not until they got what they wanted, or until they were forced to stop. And I already knew which of the two options I was going to choose. The next day, Dr. Renata filed a protective measure against my parents. We attached the video of the break-in attempt, the police report, and all the threatening messages I had received. This will send a clear message, she said. Either they stop, or they'll answer criminally. The measure was granted within 48 hours. My parents were notified that they couldn't approach me, my workplace, or my residence, under penalty of arrest. And that's when everything fell apart for them. Because that same week, the judge responsible for the inventory requested a conciliation hearing. All heirs and contestants had to be present. I arrived at the courthouse on a cold June morning, wearing a black blazer and carrying a folder with all the organized documents. Dr. Renata was by my side, firm and relentless. My parents were already there. sitting on the other side of the hearing room, accompanied by a lawyer who looked more nervous than they did. Bianca arrived minutes later, alone, and sat next to me. My mother looked at her with an expression of shock and betrayal. "Bianca, what are you doing?" "The right thing," Bianca replied without looking at her. The judge entered, and the hearing began. My parents' lawyer presented the arguments that my grandfather was senile, that the will didn't reflect his true wishes, that he had been influenced by ill-intentioned third parties. When asked who these third parties were, they couldn't answer, because they didn't exist. Dr. Renata then presented the medical reports, neurological exams, lucidity certificates, even a video recording that the notary itself had made on the day the will was signed, where my grandfather explained, with a firm and clear voice, that he wanted to divide everything equally between the two granddaughters. "Julia was always forgotten by the family," he said in the video, looking directly at the camera. "And I don't want her to be forgotten by me too. She deserves as much as Bianca. Maybe even more, because she fought alone for everything she has." When the video ended, the silence in the room was deafening. My mother was pale. My father, red with anger. The judge turned to them. "Do you have any concrete evidence that the will is invalid?" Their lawyer hesitated. "Well, Your Honor, the reports we presented." "You didn't present any report," the judge cut him off, leafing through the case files. "Just allegations." "Your Honor, the issue is that." "The issue," the judge interrupted again, taking off his glasses, "is that you're trying to defraud a legitimate will based on lies. And on top of that, according to the files, the contesting party tried to invade the heir's residence and directly threatened her." He looked at my parents with disapproval. "I'm going to dismiss the contestation. The will is valid. The inheritance will be divided as stipulated by the deceased. And if there's any new attempt at coercion or threat against Ms. Julia, you will answer not only civilly, but criminally. Is that clear?" My father opened his mouth to speak, but his lawyer held his arm, shaking his head. "It's clear, Your Honor," the lawyer said, defeated. The hearing ended. My parents left without looking back. They didn't try to talk to me. They didn't try to talk to Bianca. They just left, hunched over, humiliated. And I felt relief. Not revenge. Not anger. Just an immense relief that finally, someone besides me had seen the truth. Bianca hugged me in the courthouse hallway, and this time, I returned it. "Thank you," she whispered, "for not giving up, and for showing me that I didn't need to give up either." "We manage," I replied. "We always have." In the following months, the inheritance was officially released. I sold my part of the countryside house and received the 235,000 Brazilian reals that was due to me. With that money, I paid off my apartment, invested part of it, and used the rest to do something I always wanted. I opened a small NGO to support young people in vulnerable situations. Young people like I was, who were kicked out of their homes, who had nowhere to go. I called it Recomico, New Beginning. Simple, direct. Bianca used her part to open a graphic design studio, something she always dreamed of but never had the courage to try. We talked every week. We weren't best friends, but we were real sisters now. The kind who support each other. My parents tried to contact me one last time, 6 months after the hearing. A letter sent by mail. Inside, an old photo. Me and Bianca as children, in our grandfather's lap, smiling. And on the back, handwritten, "I'm sorry for everything. I hope one day you can forgive." It wasn't signed. I kept the photo. Not for the letter, but because it was one of the few images I had of him. As for forgiveness, well, forgiveness is something you earn. Not with words, with actions. And to this day, they never did anything beyond sending that letter. So no, I didn't forgive. But I also didn't hold a grudge. I simply moved forward. I built a life they could never claim, control, or destroy. A life where I wasn't disposable. Where I wasn't invisible. Where I was finally enough. And every time a young person arrived at my NGO, lost, scared, thinking the world had ended, I looked at them and said, "You're going to overcome this. I know because I overcame it. And I'm going to help you." Because that was the real revenge. Not destroying those who hurt me, but building something so strong, so beautiful, so real, that their absence never mattered again. And whenever I looked at what I had built alone with my own hands, I smiled. Because in the end, I won. Not because they lost, but because I finally found myself. And no one, ever again, could take that away from me. If this story touched you in any way, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more stories of overcoming injustice. Your comments and support make all the difference for other people who may be going through similar situations. See you in the next story.